Good morning. Good morning. All right, this morning we're going to talk about something that I'm sure everybody is extremely excited about. We're going to spend a couple of weeks talking about authority. Authority. So, when you think about authority, what are some things that come to mind? Well, there's, we may have a problem with authority. We know we have authority at home. We have authority at school. If you play sports, there's usually an authority figure. It's usually a referee or a coach or something like that. So authority is around us all the time. And the key thing about authority is we have to understand what authority is. And then when we understand it, we have to know how to operate within authority. For example, I don't particularly like referees or officials, or as I've gotten older, I have less of a problem with them, but usually I have a problem with them because I think sometimes they abuse authority. We've seen police officers, we've seen it on TV and videos where we've seen people abuse authority. So usually our view of authority is tainted. Sometimes we've even been in homes, or we know kids that are in homes where parents have abused their authority. So authority is something that's given to us, and at the same time, it's something that we have to operate underneath. So how do we embrace authority? Well, we have to figure out how do we practice the authority that God's given us, and at the same time be under His authority and the authority of other people, where we don't feel so controlled or kind of pushed down. Now, I think that's the problem that we feel lots of times with authority is that we feel controlled. We feel that someone or something or some rule or something is starting to control us. I know Jana's at an age right now where she's like 8 or 9 years old. 8 years old, she'll be 9 in a few weeks, where she's pushing back on authority. When you tell her to do something, it's like you got to tell her 3 or 4 times. It's a big deal. She's having a hard time with rules and regulations. And I think that's kind of how we operate. So when we have a problem with rules, or we have a problem with authority, sometimes we end up rebelling against it. Now, no matter what, we're never going to completely be satisfied when it comes to authority. We're never, ever going to be completely satisfied with it. We're never, ever going to be completely satisfied with the authority of our parents, or the authority of our teachers, or the authority of our coaches. We're always going to have some sort of pushback. There's always going to be something they do that we don't like. And that's where the tension comes in. And I think the main question that we have to answer today, and what I want us to think about over the next few weeks, is what or who has authority over us? What or who has authority over you? Now, I said what or who. Now, we know God has authority over us. We know that our parents have authority over us, our teachers. But there are things that we also allow to gain authority over us. And when I mean authority, we allow them to dictate the rules of our life. It could be greed. It could be vanity. It could be anger. These things are things that we allow to control us and direct us. It could be sadness. It could be the desire to want to fit in, or the desire to do anything or everything that we can to be a part of a group, and it starts to control us. See, authority is not only someone telling us what to do, but authority could be something telling us to do something. Something driving us in a certain direction. Ultimate freedom is found underneath authority, not outside of it. Ultimate freedom is found underneath authority, not outside of it. How do we know this? Well, you guys watch the news, or you've watched the news in the past, or even in history, you see all these revolts and rebellions and things that happen against nations. It's usually a group of people that have decided to work outside of the authority that they've been placed underneath. Now, lots of times they're going against a country, or they're going against a leader or a dictator who should probably be overthrown. But it's so unorganized and chaotic lots of times that there's really no authority that's replacing that authority. So it ends up in 5 to 10 years later, they're in the same situation again. If you look at Iraq's a perfect example. They overthrew the dictating government that was there, but it's been so chaotic there that they're not getting underneath any other authority. They have all these other factions now that are breaking out because nobody wants to be under a single authority. And that's a problem. The whole Jesus movement started at a time when the authority of the world was underneath the rule of a Roman Empire. And the people felt no freedom underneath that rule. So what would happen in these peasant communities, which made up 98% of the population, they would rebel against all their leaders. So all these uprisings would start. And they'd be squashed because the Roman army was bigger than the peasant army, and they would come and squash them. It wasn't until Jesus made the statement in the Great Commission where he said, all authority has been given to me from above, from God the Father. Jesus now was turning them towards the true authority figure in their lives. Who should rule over our lives? If we don't allow God to be the place where we start rule in our lives, then we'll never find ultimate freedom because we won't understand how authority works. So let's look at what it says in the Bible. All right, it starts from the very beginning, Genesis 1. Who knows what tell me what Genesis 1:1 says. Who knows what that says?
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Okay. So
I think that's the New International Version.
nice. Okay. So how does that tell us about authority? What about that verse says authority? Well, we know it says in the beginning. So we know that God was here first. So God's the ultimate authority because He was the first person here. So He gets the mantle of being the top authority figure. What else did He do? Well, He created everything. So He has ultimate authority over all that He created and all that He did. So there's a pretty simple chain of command. It's God, and then it's everything else. We have a tendency in our lives, though, to put lots of things above God. And we allow those people or those things to have the ultimate authority over us. All right? So what did God do after He created the heavens and the earth, and He created all the living beings, creatures? What did He find? What was His crescendo? His final moment? He created what? Man, right? Okay. So God created man. So man was underneath the authority of God. What did He tell man he had the ability to do? What did He tell Adam to do? Go out and do what? Name the animals. So God now sets up a chain of command for authority. It's God, He creates man, and now He gives man authority over animals. Now, this is a simple statement, like no one would argue this statement with me, but animals don't have authority over us. Like, we know that. Okay, we know that. Now, there are animals that could rip us to pieces. Yeah, we know that. But we're designed to rule over animals. We're designed to rule over people. Okay, the animals don't rule over people. There's a chain of command that happens here. All right? So, God gave us authority. And with the authority, there comes responsibility. Now, when did it all start to go bad? When the woman came into the picture. That's right. Yes. Genesis 3, the serpent enters the picture. It was just not the woman. The woman is not the serpent. But the serpent approaches the woman and gets the woman, or talking the woman into doing what? Eating the fruit. But what is he getting her to question? The authority of who? God. Not only is he getting her to question God's authority, but he's getting her to question her authority. See, what the devil like to do is he'll like to put people in our lives or put circumstances in our life that question the authority that we have over our own lives or over circumstances or whatever it might be. But ultimately, he's trying to get her to question God's authority because he makes this statement, did he really say that you must not eat from that tree? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're going, did God really mean that? Did God really say that? Did God really want me to do that? Is that truly how God feels? If God really wanted me to do that, then He would do this. Or if God, if you really want me to do that, then you would answer this prayer, or you would put my family together, or you would do whatever it might be. You would give me more friends, or you would help me with this craziness in my mind, or you would heal me, or you would, whatever. If you like, that seems to us like, well, that's not questioning God's authority. Well, sure it is. Because when we start questioning and start bargaining with God, we're questioning whether He is the one who created everything and can do all things. Anytime that we question God or we doubt God, we're questioning His authority over everything. And there's only one perfect authority, and that's Him. So the serpent is convincing her to not eat, and he makes this statement. He says to the woman, "You will surely not die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Now, we've all been in this situation before where you've been sitting around and wanted to know the outcome of something. Like, how awesome would it be to know what I'm going to make on that test, or what the outcome of something. Like, we would love, who would love to know that, right? Yeah, who would win the Super Bowl? We could win a lot. Like, we would love to know that sometimes. But God didn't give us that authority. That breaks the chain of command. What the serpent was trying to get God to understand, or get Eve to understand, is that God's not the ultimate authority. Like, you have this power, and God doesn't want you to have this power. But we all know, sitting in here, that if God gave us the power to know all things, that we would screw that up. That He sets the chain of command in motion because He is the perfect one, the only perfect one. So as we move through this story, we find that the snake intended to create this sort of discontentment inside Eve that would lead her to question God. And that's what I want to talk about today. It's our discontentment with people, parents, teachers, coaches, people that have been placed in authority over our life. It is our discontentment with them that causes us to rebel and work our lives outside of authority. It's our discontentment with God, that He's not moving too fast, or He's not moving too big, or He's not doing too many great things in our life. That we become discontent with God, so we move farther away from Him and we start to operate outside of His authority. We think in our minds that we're freer if we don't live this life, this Christian life, obeying God's commands and obeying what God has for us to do. We think we're freer. And actually, the freedom's not found outside the authority of God. It's found within the authority of God. Think about the characters in the Bible. Here's Abraham, right? Who goes up to the top of that mountain. He's carrying his kid. He's going to basically murder his son, Isaac, for God. He lays him on the altar. He's going to cut him. He's going to kill him. That's what God told him to do. He operated within the authority of God, but he had the opportunity to operate outside of that authority. Think about that. Would anybody in here, as much as you might hate your brother or sister, would you actually, if God said, "I want you to go kill him," what would you do? You'd go ask a parent, right? God told me to go do that. I don't know if I should do this. I'm not saying God would tell us to do that, but there are things God tells us to do. There's a lifestyle that God tells us to live. He doesn't put it up for debate. He doesn't say if you get around to it. He says, this is how you should live. If you don't live like that, you will not have the ultimate freedom in your life. Think about times when you have not lived within what you know God wants you to do. What has it caused? You've dated the wrong guy or girl. You've said the wrong thing come out of your mouth. You've been a horse's behind on a court or a field or something. God's told you or led you to be a part of something and you chose not to do it, and it ended up being something great and you never were a part of it. The ultimate freedom is found underneath the authority that God places us under. Now, let's think about this. Eve's attempt to do without authority made the world better or made it worse? Would you rather live in a world today that was still perfect and there was no sin and everything was great and you had everything you wanted and everything you needed, and right? Is the world better or worse because of her operating outside of the authority of God? It's worse. Is the world worse today because of the things that are put on television that are not suitable really to watch or be a part of? Worse. Somebody operating outside of the authority or boundaries of God. Are families in better shape now than they ever have been? The divorce rates climbing to 60%? No. Operating outside of the authority of God. Are schools better off than they ever have been? No. Education slipping. More and more students are studying at home. I remember when everybody went to public school. But what's happening now in schools around the world is that people are not operating under the correct authority that they should be operating. They're not operating under God's authority, right? What? We don't pray in school anymore, hardly. I don't even know if we do the Pledge of Allegiance in school anymore before school starts. You even see the ultimate authority of our country that we're placed under. There's so much hatred and anger thrown out at people who run our country. Now, granted, they may not do everything the way we want them to, or they may be doing wrong things, but this country is divided more than it ever has been. Are we better off today? No. And why is that? It's because we've been convinced that operating under the authority of God does not bring us ultimate freedom. Someone who doesn't believe Jesus as their Lord and Savior is basically in prison. That's where, if you think about it in that way, they do not have ultimate freedom. They may have a great life. They may have the greatest life ever, but they don't have ultimate freedom because they're not operating under the correct authority. Now, whether we see authority as a non-issue or just an issue of kind of paying our dues in our current stage of life, we could be missing something here. What we learn from Adam and Eve in that story is that the key to dealing with authority is trust. Trusting that God has a greater love and care for us than we do ourselves. Let me say that again. The key to operating underneath God's authority is to trust that God has a greater love and care for our lives than we do ourselves. Now think about that. God loves us and loves you and loves me more than we love ourselves. So we have to trust God in the fact that He has our needs and our desires are more important to Him than they are to us. Our well-being, our future, where we're going, who we're hanging out with, what we're watching on TV, the music we're listening to. He cares more about how that's affecting us than we do. That's what authority does. Authority is not all about telling you what to do. Authority is about caring about who you are. And you might say, well, there are people that in my life that are bad authority figures and they don't really care who I am. Okay, granted, that might be true. But that shouldn't skew your whole view of how authority works in the world. Just because one or two people are not practicing great authority doesn't mean that you put everybody in the same boat and you don't put God there. God cares about your life more than your parents do. God cares about your life more than your principal, your coach, your friends, your pastor. I tell parents this all the time. If any parents is watching this is what I would say. It's great that you look to your church or your pastors to help motivate your kids and encourage your kids and pour into your kids. It's awesome. But the ultimate authority outside of God in the lives of children are parents. And if parents don't practice the art of teaching and encouraging and responsible authority, the church has no chance. The church has no chance. Ultimate freedom is found within the confines of authority. And the other side of it is that, we all like having power. We all like having authority. All of us, man. We all like to tell our friends what to do, or we all like to be able to make decisions. The problem is we don't necessarily like sitting underneath authority. We love having authority, but many times we don't like sitting underneath authority. We love when God answers our prayers. We don't necessarily like it when He tells us to do something that's going to be hard to do. We love it when God provides a way for us, or provides something for us, or gives us a great home, or gives us things. We love that. But when God takes things away, He's uncool. He's mean old God. See, we love to have power. We love to have authority. We don't necessarily always like to sit underneath it. We love to tell people what to do, but when our parents tell us what to do, it's as if the world has come to an end. How dare my mom tell me not to wear that? Who does she think she is? I'm 15 years old. How dare my mom or my dad take my phone away, or tell me take my guitar away, or tell me, how dare they do that? We immediately think that they're bad. But if they give us some authority to make some decisions, then they're the greatest people ever. Or if they gave us the guitar to begin with, how awesome were they? It's as if they gave it to us, but they have no authority to take it away. And so we view our parents, or we view these people in our life as these bad people, instead of viewing them as maybe, and I know with them it's deep down in the core of who they are, that they actually care about you more than you care about yourself. Maybe they want better for you than you actually want for yourself. Think about that. Now, maybe they don't know exactly how to communicate that, and maybe they fumble it around all the time, but they're not perfect. There's only one perfect person that we sit underneath the authority of. But maybe they're trying to do things that are going to help you with your life, but my gosh, how dare they tell me who I'm going to date? Or I can't believe they don't like my girlfriend or my boyfriend. Maybe it's just the fact that they are like God and they actually care about you more than you care about yourself. That's what authority is. How dare Greg stalk me on Facebook, make comments to me about what I say or how I live? How dare he do that? Have you ever sat down and thought, well, maybe Greg actually cares about me in that instance more than I care about myself? Think about that. Our basketball team. We have 4 coaches on the Highlands basketball team. It's probably 3 too many. And they all 4 have different personalities. Okay? Coach Birdman is a tyrant, yells and screams. I have goofy sayings all the time. Coach Potts can't decide if he wants to be mean or nice. Andy just talks about toughness. This is our guys. But here's what I would say about all 4 of the coaches. And I would say this about the coaches that coach you now. They care about your advancement in your sport and the character that you're going to, that is going to build you in that sport more than you do. I know that for a fact. I care more about what college you're going to go to, who you're going to date, who your friends are, more than you do. That's my position of authority. I do. And God cares about it more than I do, and more than you do. And your parents, I know, deep down in the bottomless pit of who they are, as you would say, they actually care about your future more than you do. They do. Are they bad at communicating it sometimes? Certainly they are. Do they punish you unjustly many times? Certainly they do. But of the kids sitting in this room right here, and I know all of your parents, I have not met one of them when I look at them and say, boy, I bet you they maliciously want to hurt that kid every day. Every day. They sit wringing their hands every morning saying, how can I get Brent today? I don't think Kip Amadrood's sitting there going, I'm going to just beat him down today. I know Carter Davis is not getting up, looking in his microscope with his stethoscope going, I will punish Gemma and Gardner beyond belief, unjustly, and they've done nothing wrong. They don't do that. At least your parents don't. So, why is it that we have this huge problem with authority? Because I'm going to tell you this right now. This is going to be, if you don't hear anything else that I say today, this is the pearl of wisdom. If you don't get an understanding of the earthly authority figures in your life and have an appreciation for your parents and your coaches and your teachers, you will never get how authority works in God's world. You'll never respect the authority that He has. I learned this the hard way. I'll tell you. When I played basketball in high school, I was a maniac. I got technical fouls all the time. I led the league that we were in technical fouls. I picked a basketball up one time and threw it at an official's head as he was walking away. Didn't hit him, thank the Lord. I was out of control. I had no respect for authority. I had no respect for the authority that the referees had. I had no respect for the authority of my coach, my parents. But ultimately, who I never had respect for and His authority was God. So I lived this life for 20 some odd years not respecting God's authority over my life. So I lived my life however I wanted to. Now I believed there was a God. I believed there was a Jesus. I went to church and sat there on Sundays. But I never ever truly operated underneath the freedom of God's authority. I was always working outside His authority. So here's what happened to me. I never got any really purpose in my life until I was in my 30s. I never got married to the woman of my dreams until I was 30. I had kids way late in life. I never got within the calling of what I was supposed to do later. I never had peace in my life, really peace in my life, until I was about 33 years old. Now, you guys in here are, 12, 13, 14, 18, whatever. Do you really want to wait 15 years to figure out how authority works? No. I've told you, right? Failed out of 7 different colleges. That's what I did. Had no authority for the university system, for my teachers, anything. I did what I wanted to do. I lived outside of... Now, I thought I had unbelievable freedom, right? I thought I was the coolest guy in town, man. I had no responsibilities. I had nothing. I couldn't make my car payment. I lived in my car for 8 months. Nobody would let me live in their home. I was addicted to all kinds of different stuff because I was trying to find what was going to ultimately be the authority over my life. I dated girls and hung out with girls and was engaged like 3 or 4 times because I was trying to find some authority. Never respected any of the authority. I thought I was free. But inside, and we all know this. You're all there. Inside, I knew I wasn't. The things that we struggle with, the things that hold this thing, whatever it is, over our life, these black clouds, we know what they are. Each individual person knows what they are. We all know what they are. I know most of you well enough that if we sat down one-on-one, we could have a discussion. You know what they are. I know what they are. And we allow those things to become the authority over our life, and they start to dictate how we live and what we do. Instead of understanding that those things in your life could care less about you. This feeling to be wanted and needed and accepted is from the enemy. And you know what? He could care less about you except to destroy you. And he uses that to do it. There's only one being on the face of the earth, in heaven, wherever, that cares more about you than you do yourselves, with no agenda, and that's God. Perfect in every way. So is your life, if you had to sit down, do you feel more of a rebellion towards God, or do you feel more of a sitting underneath His authority? And if you sat down and looked at your life and meditated on your life, is your life a life that's sitting under the full submission of God's authority? Is your life right now sitting under the full submission of God's authority? Coming to church, that's not what I'm talking about. Bible study, not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, are all your worries, your concerns, your needs, your wants, your desires His? And are they underneath His authority, or are they underneath the authority of something else? Until you get that straight, you will never, ever have ultimate freedom. And until you trust God's order for authority in your life, which is your parents, your coaches, your teachers, the people that have been placed there, you'll never understand how authority in God's world works. God cares about you and loves you more than you love yourself. Wouldn't you want to spend time with someone like that? Wouldn't you want to be in the presence of someone who loves you and cares about you more than anybody? And does your life reflect that need and want and desire? Okay. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for, I just thank you for the opportunity, God, that you've presented to us to be able to be in your presence, just to sit with you, to be with you, to understand you as the authority in our lives. I pray, God, that our life would reflect your chain of authority. I pray that we would understand, God, that it is you who cares and loves for us more than anybody in the world. That your heart's desire is for us to grow. Your heart's desire is for us to love you so much, to seek you deeply, to turn to you. That your heart's desire, God, is for us to be connected to you. I pray, Father, that those of us who are struggling with authority, maybe it's earthly authorities, maybe we've been hurt by authority figures, God, that you would help us heal from that. I pray that we would look at our parents as parents who are trying to help us be better. That their care for us is to help us have a better life, to help us even know you more, God, to be good people, to heal from past transgressions. My prayer today is that we all feel your presence in our life, and that we all seek you, and that we seek to be underneath your guidance. Father, we love you and honor you in this place. And as we worship today, I pray that, God, that we understand that we worship you underneath you, that we look to you, that we sing to you, that this is a time to praise you for your control, for your care and love of us. And as we seek you today, God, and the rest of this day, not letting today be the only day, let this be the beginning of a wonderful week where you are our master. We love and honor you, God, as our King and our head. In your name.